There is a story that breathes in the damp soil of Britain, a story whispered in the rustle of oak leaves and the prickle of holly. It is not a tale found in the grand histories of kings and queens, but in the quiet, shadowed places where the wild world still holds its breath. It is the story of a war fought not for land or gold, but for the crown of the year itself, a crown of leaf and thorn. Listen closely when you walk the old paths. You might feel it, a tension in the air at the turning of the seasons. At midsummer, when the sun hangs highest in the sky, a power begins to wane, and in the deep, frozen heart of midwinter, a new light is rekindled. This is the rhythm of the endless duel. Look upon the ancient faces carved into the stone of village churches. The green man, with vines spilling from his mouth. He is not one being, but two, caught in a single eternal moment. Inside his foliate face, a battle rages. It is the clash of two brothers, two kings, locked in a struggle that is both life and death, both summer and winter. This is their story. Welcome to the Candlelight Historian, where forgotten folklore and the shadows of Britain's past are retold by the glow of a single flame. Here we wander through the mists of old England, listening for voices half-remembered, half-feared, and uncovering the truths buried beneath legend. If you enjoy these quiet journeys into the darker corners of history, light your own candle, and let us begin. Chapter 1. The Twin Kings of the Seasons. First comes the Oak King, the Lord of the waxing year. His story begins in the deepest dark, at the winter solstice. He is born in the quiet cold, a promise of light when the world seems lost to shadow. As the days lengthen, his power grows. In his most primal form, he is the green man made flesh, a being of foliage and vine with leaves sprouting from his very skin. He walks through the forests, and the bluebells rise in his footsteps. His crown is woven from the first green leaves of the oak, studded with acorns that hold the promise of mighty trees. His weapon is the life force itself, the unstoppable surge of spring. His avian symbol is the robin redbreast, whose appearance in the snow is a promise that the Lord of Light, though weakened, will rise again. He reigns over the long, bright days, a king of expansion, passion, and vitality. He is the stag in the meadow, the sun on the fields of agriculture, the raw power of the summer storm, for his sacred oak is the tree of thunder gods. Under his rule, the world becomes a riot of green and gold. He is fertility and abundance, the sun at its zenith. But at that very peak, on the day of his greatest triumph at midsummer, his twin brother arrives to challenge him. This is the Holly King, Lord of the waning year. He can appear as a wise, white-bearded old man or as a formidable giant, echoing the Green Knight of legend. Sometimes he walks with 8 stags at his side, a clear precursor to the Father Christmas figure. He is the stark beauty of winter, the quiet strength that endures. While the Oak King is clothed in life, the Holly King is clad in the deep red of holly berries and the dark, glossy green of its protective leaves. His crown is of thorn and evergreen, a symbol of life that persists even in the face of death. His totem is the tiny wren, the king of birds in the dark season. He is the wisdom of the falling leaf, the introspection of the long night. His weapon is the coming frost, the patient, inexorable pull of darkness. At the summer solstice they meet. Their battle is not one of good against evil, for both are necessary. Are they truly warring brothers, locked in an endless tragic rivalry? Or are they two faces of a single ancient god, who ages from the youthful Oak King into the old Holly King, only to be reborn from his own symbolic death? The answer is lost to time. What is known is that the Oak King, now at his peak, must yield. He falls, and his blood feeds the earth, preparing it for the harvest. His defeat is not an ending, but a sacrifice. When one bleeds, the world blooms in the colors of autumn. The Holly King then takes the throne. He governs the slow descent into winter, a time of rest and reflection that allows not just the land, but the soul to gather its strength. He is the bare branch against a grey sky, the silence of the snow-covered field. And in the heart of his power, at the winter solstice, in the deepest night of the year, the newborn Oak King rises to challenge him in turn. And so the cycle continues. Their endless war is not a tragedy, but the very heartbeat of nature itself. Chapter 2. Roots of an Ancient Myth. Where does such a story come from? It does not live in a single book, but is woven from 1,000 threads of folklore and belief that stretch back into the mists. To find its roots, we must look not to words, but to the trees themselves, and to the elder tales that echo the turning of the seasons. To the ancient peoples of Britain, the oak was more than wood. It was an emblem of strength, endurance, longevity, and steadfastness. It was the king of the forest, attracting the lightning of the storm gods, like the Celtic Tyrannus and the Norse Thor. The Druids held their sacred groves among the oaks, seeing in its steadfast presence a connection to the divine. The oak was the tree of the bright half of the year, a living testament to growth and power. But when the oak shed its leaves and stood bare, another tree held the forest's life, the holly. It stood as a symbol of life's endurance when all other deciduous trees appeared dead. An evergreen, its prickly leaves and blood-red berries were a defiant promise that even in the deepest dark of winter, life had not fled. It was a tree of powerful protection. Its branches hung over doorways to ward off evil spirits, witches, and even lightning. It was the keeper of the vital spark through the cold months. In these two trees, the duel of the kings was already being written. This pattern of seasonal combat echoes powerfully in authentic Celtic tales. In the Welsh Mabinogion, we find the story of Gwythyr ap Grydal, champion of the world of light, and Gwyn ap Nudd, the fearsome dark lord of the other world. They are doomed to fight for the hand of the maiden Creiddylad every 1st of May until the end of time. The archetype appears again in the tale of the sun hero, Llo Lor Gifs, who is betrayed at the peak of his power by his flower-faced wife and a dark rival. He is struck down, not to die, but to be transformed into an eagle, suffering until he is magically restored and reborn. The solar hero must fall for the cycle to continue. This story predates even these myths. It was born in the bones of the first farmers who watched the sky and prayed for the sun's return. They understood the great cycle instinctively. They knew that for the land to be reborn, it must first die. The vibrant life of summer had to be sacrificed, and the cold grip of winter had to be broken. The solstices were not just dates on a calendar. They were moments of profound cosmic anxiety and hope. At these turning points, they lit fires, held feasts, and through ritual and story, they acted out the great battle. Across Europe, villagers would dress as personifications of summer and winter, engaging in mock combat to ensure the victory of the light. This was sympathetic magic, an active participation in the cosmic drama to hasten the arrival of spring and guarantee that the sun would always win. Chapter 3. The Green Man's Hidden Faces. This eternal conflict found its most enigmatic expression carved into the very heart of Christian Britain. High in the vaulted ceilings and wooden choir stalls of medieval churches and cathedrals, a strange face peers down. He is made of leaves. Sometimes, vines sprout from his mouth, his nose, his eyes, an uncontrollable, explosive burst of natural energy. This is the Green Man. For centuries, he has watched from the shadows of the sacred. His presence is a paradox. What is this pagan-seeming face doing within the walls of a church? Scholars have traced his artistic origins to Roman leaf masks, but his spirit feels far older, far more native to the soil of Britain. In him, the two kings become one. He is their synthesis, an eternal being who contains both the riotous life of summer and the stark endurance of winter. The face that spews forth leaves is the Oak King in his moment of creation, the untamable force of spring bursting from the earth. But he is also a terrifying figure, a reminder of the body's decay, of how the green world will consume and reclaim all that we build. He is the Holly King's promise of renewal sprouting from the mouth of death. Perhaps the medieval craftsman who carved him saw him as a symbol of resurrection, a pre-Christian echo of the victory over death. Or perhaps he was a concession, a secret acknowledgement of the old gods of the land, a way of folding the spirit of the wild world into the new faith. He is a conquered god, displayed as a trophy. He is a demon, lurking at the edges of the sacred. He is a holy symbol. He is all of these things, and none of them. He is the face of the forest itself, watching the turning of the year, holding the secret of the two kings within his silent, leafy gaze. Chapter 4. The Solstice Battles. The Battle of the Kings was not just a myth whispered by the fire. It was a living drama, performed in the villages and fields. The folk of Britain, perhaps without even knowing the names of the kings, enacted their struggle year after year. At Christmas, as the Holly King's reign reached its peak, troops of disguised villagers, known as mummers, would go from house to house. Their plays were simple, raw, and powerful, often introduced by a character like Father Christmas, who would clear a space for the performance. A hero, often St. George, would boast of his strength and challenge a rival, frequently a foreign figure like the Turkish knight, representing an outside and chaotic force. They fought with wooden swords, and one of them would fall to the ground, dead. This was the crucial moment, the ritual death. The old year was symbolically slain. But the play did not end in sorrow. A comical doctor would arrive, and with a magical elixir, he would bring the fallen hero back to life. Death and resurrection, performed on the village green, to ensure the son would be reborn, though for the players themselves, the reward was often more immediate, a collection of money, food, and drink from the grateful audience. As winter gave way to spring, another ritual awoke the land. Morris dancers with bells on their ankles to frighten away malevolent spirits would leap and stamp upon the earth. The waving of their handkerchiefs and the rhythmic clashing of their sticks was a stylized echo of the ancient combat. This dance was sympathetic magic, a performance to wake Mother Earth from her slumber and encourage the crops to grow tall. At the very peak of this celebration, on May Day, the Oak King would appear in his most untamed form. The Jack in the Green, a man entirely hidden within a towering pyramid of fresh leaves and flowers, would dance through the streets. He was the Green Man walking, the wild vegetative spirit of summer brought into the heart of the community. But the most stark and visceral enactment of the duel came just after Christmas, on St. Stephen's Day. Groups of boys and men, known as the Wren Boys, would hunt and kill one of Britain's smallest birds, the wren. The wren, king of the birds, was the symbol of the Holly King. Its tiny body would be tied to a decorated holly bush and paraded from door to door. This was the sacrifice. The King of Winter was ritually slain to banish the cold and ensure his reign was over, paving the way for the return of the light. The crowd cheered for the coming spring, but the earth was watching, accepting the offering. Chapter 5. Kings in Story and Song. The archetypes of the seasonal kings echoed through Britain's literature, their faces changing but their ancient roles remaining. We find them in the tragic tales of warring brothers that haunt Arthurian legend, like the fated duel between Balin and Balin, but nowhere more powerfully than in the court of Camelot, in one of the strangest tales of the age, Sir Gawain and the Green Knight. On New Year's Eve, as the court feasts, a monstrous figure bursts in. He is a giant, entirely green, riding a green horse. His color is deeply ambiguous, a symbol not only of nature but of the supernatural, the fae, and the otherworldly. He is not merely a villain, but an intruder from the wild, a trickster and a judge. He has come not to conquer Camelot, but to test its civilized codes and expose its vulnerabilities, playing a game whose stakes are far higher than the court initially understands. In one hand, he holds a terrifying battle axe, but in the other, a bough of holly. That shows greenest when all the groves are leafless. He is the Holly King made flesh, a personification of winter's enduring life, armed with the threat of death. He proposes a beheading game, a Christmas game. Gawain accepts, and in a moment of pure horror, strikes off the giant's head. But the Green Knight does not die. His body picks up the severed head, which speaks, reminding Gawain of their appointment 1 year hence. The spirit of winter is symbolically killed at the solstice, yet he demonstrates his power to survive and return. For centuries, the story of the kings remained in these fragments, in folk customs, in the tragic Welsh myths of sun heroes betrayed at their peak, in poems, and in the faces on church walls. Then, as the modern world began to search for its lost soul, scholars and poets started to piece the puzzle together. The intellectual soil was first prepared by sweeping theories from armchair anthropologists who, from the comfort of their studies, gathered a vast array of folk customs. They saw a universal pattern of a dying and reviving god, a sacred king whose life and ritual sacrifice were mystically tied to the health of the land and the turning of the seasons. Upon this groundwork, a 20th century writer with a passion for myth made a crucial, creative leap. Where the scholars saw one god with two faces, he envisioned two distinct warring personalities. He took the universal archetype and deliberately split it, creating twin brothers locked in an eternal struggle, not just for a crown, but for the favor of a capricious and all-powerful triple goddess. They looked at the mummers' play, the legend of the Green Knight, the folklore of the trees, and the great duels of Welsh and Irish myth, and they gave the two ancient rivals the names we know today, the Oak King and the Holly King. This act of creation was one of poetic intuition, not sober history, a brilliant, even obsessive synthesis. They did not invent the story from nothing, so much as they remembered it on behalf of a world that had forgotten. They gave a name and a narrative to a duel that had been haunting the British imagination for millennia. The story had never died. It had simply been waiting, mutating, surviving in the quiet corners of the land, ready to be told anew. Chapter 6. The Battle Within Us All. In the end, the eternal battle between the Oak King and the Holly King is more than just a story about the changing of the seasons. It is a profound metaphor for the world inside each of us. Their cosmic duel is a reflection of the inner landscape of the human heart. The Oak King is the persona, the face we present to the world. He is our drive for growth, achievement, and life. He is the light of awareness, the part of us that builds, that connects, that strives. His reign is the summer of our lives, a time of outward focus, social engagement, and the building of our place in the world. He is the self we believe ourselves to be, shining in the full light of day. The Holly King is the part of ourselves we often ignore or fear. He is the shadow, the unconscious, the unknown. His reign represents a necessary descent into our own inner darkness. a time for introspection, solitude, and confronting the aspects of our nature we have repressed. His fallow period is not an absence of life, but a time of quiet germination, where the seeds of a deeper wisdom are sown in the dark. The cycle of their battle is the map of our own journey toward becoming whole. The triumph of the Holly King at midsummer is not a defeat, but a necessary death of the ego's dominance. It is the moment we must turn inward, embarking on a night-sea journey into the unconscious to reclaim the lost pieces of ourselves. The Oak King's rebirth at midwinter is the re-emergence of a renewed self, one that has faced its own darkness and is now stronger and wiser for the experience. This cycle is both comforting and terrifying. It reminds us that periods of darkness are not final, that light will always return. But it also tells us that no victory is permanent, that even in our brightest moments, a shadow is waiting its turn. The Holly King's reign is not always a peaceful retreat. It can be a descent into isolation, a winter of the soul that feels like madness. The land itself becomes a mirror, and the cosmic duel becomes the intimate, terrifying, and ultimately necessary struggle for a unified self. And so the Green Man breathes again, one king falling, the other rising, as the old forest remembers what we have long forgotten. Thank you for joining me on this journey into the heart of the forest. The stories that surround us are often the ones we forget to see, written in the turning of a leaf and the fall of the winter snow. If you wish to explore more such tales from the shadowed corners of history, please consider subscribing to the Candlelight Historian. Until next time, keep your lantern lit.